Hey, welcome everybody to the Psych Effect podcast. I'm your host, Dimitri Bick. All right, I got a lot of things to get through in this opening segment, so I'm just going to go right into it. The Panthers are up 3-0. They won the last game last night. I'm recording this the day after that, and I wanted to get into the superstitions again after the conference championships because I wanted to do a thing on the touching or not touching of the trophies because we did that last year, but missed the show last week because of all kinds of crazy stuff. Because, life gets in the way of shows and things like that. But, I'm going to do it now because one team is going to win, and it very much looks like the Panthers are going to win because 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals. There's only one team in the history of the Stanley Cup Finals that has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. It was 1942. The Maple Leafs did it. And other times it's been a sweep where a team has won in 5, or there's one time a team won in 6, one time a team came back from 3-0 and they lost in 7. But that's been about it. And so the Panthers are in real good shape, and I'm going to the watch party tomorrow to watch them lift the cup in Edmonton. Yes, in Edmonton, you guys. It's going to happen. Well, I hope I didn't jinx that. But anyway, speaking of superstitions. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the superstition of touching the cup, touching the trophy, the conference trophies, because we did that as a show last year after the Panthers made it to the conference finals. Because the Panthers last year, when they won the Eastern Conference, they touched the conference trophy. I believe it's called the Prince of Wales Trophy, the Eastern Conference Championship Trophy. And I ran the numbers. They didn't just touch it, by the way. They Barkov skated around with it. They caressed it. They damn nearly slept with it. And I ran the numbers on whether or not touching it or not touching it leads to winning in the finals. And you can check that episode out. It's episode number 11, to touch or not to touch a rule. That episode actually is also on the Goldwater rule, which you should check out because that's going to come up again later on this year. As the election gets closer, I'm going to do an episode on the Goldwater rule. I'm going to do a little bit deeper of a dive on that if everything works out. But yeah, I'm going to do that episode again. So you should check out that episode, number 11, to touch or not to touch a rule. I ran all the numbers, and it turns out that touching it or not touching it doesn't really matter. Imagine that superstitions don't really matter. But if you want to see the numbers, check out that episode. And this year, it's not going to matter either, right? Because the Panthers didn't touch it, but neither did Edmonton. The Campbell Cup, which is the Western Conference trophy, when Edmonton won it in the Western Conference this year by beating the Stars, they didn't touch it either. So Western Conference didn't touch it. Eastern Conference didn't touch it. Someone's going to lose, and they're going to go 1-1. So it's 50%, right? So whatever, man. It doesn't matter. Superstitions are nonsense, but it makes people feel better, like they have some semblance of control. And that was the point of that episode, is that these superstitions that people do, and I think I did a top 5 sports superstitions in that episode. They make people feel like they're in control. Like I'm even doing it while I'm watching the game, while I'm watching the Panthers. I'm sitting in the same place. I listen to the Panthers radio. I don't listen to the ESPN broadcast. I listen to it on my iPad in the same position with my feet in the same seats. And yesterday, I usually have 2 TVs. And I have one TV watching a movie and then the game on the big TV. And yesterday, my Fire TV that usually is on the movies flamed out on me, just stopped working. And I could not get it to work. And I lost my mind. I spent an hour trying to fix it during the game, and I was so nervous. So nervous. because the superstition wasn't working for me. And that made me nervous because I didn't have any control. Now, I normally don't have control. I'm not Barkov on the ice. I don't have control. But it's a superstition, right? That's the idea. And it made me nervous. And then the second period happened and they scored 3 goals. And I'm like, okay. And I stopped trying to make it work. And I let it go. And then the third period happened, and that stupid goal that went off of, I think it went off of Losterinen into the net behind Bob to make it 4-2. And I'm like, oh, God, here we go with the bad luck. And then they scored again with 5 minutes left, and I was just, my heart rate hit 130, and I almost lost my mind. And I'm like, it's because of that stupid TV that didn't work. And knowing full well as a psychiatrist, knowing that I've done a superstition program, that it's not that. But they won. And I'm going to go on Saturday, and I'm going knowing full well that I'm not going to be sitting in my same seat, not listening to the Panthers broadcast, in a different place. And I'm thinking my whole self, I'm losing control, because if they lose, it's going to be because I wasn't sitting there. And now the problems start, because game 5, potentially 6 and 7, I'm not even going to be in town. And I don't know how I'm going to handle that anxiety. So Panthers, please win game 4. Please. I don't think I can handle any more of this anxiety. Just sweep and be done with it. Okay. Anyway, that's the superstition. You go check out episode 11 for all of those numbers. Now, okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Miss Alabama thing that happened. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then just Google Miss Alabama beauty pageant and you'll see what I'm talking about. But what it actually was is it wasn't a beauty pageant. But to me, that doesn't really change anything. So what it actually was this thing called the National American Miss. Apparently Alabama has a number of different pageants. One of them is a beauty pageant. They've got a ton of other ones. But this particular one was called National American Miss. And it has different criteria. It's not associated with beauty. So people were freaking out because this woman that won it was extremely obese, and they're freaking out because, well, how can this woman win a beauty pageant? And I'm not going to disagree with that, but the criteria for the one that she won was different. And here's the criteria based on the website of National American Miss. It says, our motto and our mission: through our areas of competition, National American Miss girls grow. They sit down for a one-on-one interview where they get to share their hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the future with a selection panel. They rock the mic during the personal introduction competition, a time for each contestant to introduce themselves live on stage to the judges and audience. They experience the thrill of standing in the spotlight, modeling the dress of their dreams while being escorted by a friend or family, and that's just pageant weekend. Contestants are asked to prepare a resume and volunteer in their community as part of their pageant prep. We believe that today's women are well-rounded and that beauty goes far beyond hair, makeup, and gowns. We know each of the girls and young women who pass through our program will find a renewed sense of purpose and pride in who she is. Okay. That's all fine and dandy. But look, and this is just me, and I don't know, I'm going to catch flack for this, but I don't necessarily think you should be putting this particular woman up as the model. And I'm using model not as a beauty word, as a word for the person that you would put up as a standard. In other words, I don't think you should be putting her up as the person you want to represent you. Not because she's not a great person, and she may be a fantastic person, but that's not her body type is not going to hold up. Okay? There's a lot of data that suggests that that's not the type of body type you want to associate yourself with. Okay. Again, she may be a great person, but you don't want to model yourself after her. Okay. And again, I get it. This pageant or whatever they want to call it is not based on looks, but how can you be all of those things and not take care of yourself? Right? Like, doesn't that matter a little bit that you're not taking care of your physical? It's not an appearance thing, it's your physical self. And I know what you're going to say. Look at you, the fat guy on the podcast telling other people, but I'm also not going up and like associating myself with, like, I'm not a fitness influencer up here. I'm trying to talk about it from a medical perspective. This thing reeks of like, oh, we're just going for personality. This isn't a beauty contest. It's just a personality contest. And that has been this thing my entire life. The fat people are the ones with great personalities. And I find that to be like just so demeaning in general. It undercuts health in general. There's no healthy at any weight. And so it takes away from the taking care of yourself part. And so what I wanted to do in this particular part of this segment was read you some obesity statistics. Number one, the risk of type 2 diabetes increases for every 1 point increase in BMI. The risk increases 100% between BMIs of 27 to 29 and 300% over BMIs of 29. 3.5, number two, 3.5 people are 3.5 times more likely to have hypertension, and 60 to 70% of hypertension is attributed to adiposity, in other words, obesity. All right. Number three, people with obesity are 10 to 20% more likely to have obstructive sleep apnea. And we have an episode on obstructive sleep apnea with a sleep doctor from Atlanta about all the dangers of that. Now, he says obstructive sleep apnea is not caused by obesity. It's worsened by obesity. Okay. Number four, for every 5-point increase in BMI, mortality from kidney disease increases by 60%. And number five, obesity is associated with higher risk for cancers, including endometrial, ovarian, breast, and liver cancers. And I haven't even gotten to like other systems like cardiac, the cardiac system, the cardiovascular systems, the brain, depression. It's associated with higher rates of depression because obesity is inflammatory. And depression, we're now learning, is partially an inflammatory disease. And obesity makes that worse. So miss me with all of this, obesity is okay. And being fat is perfectly fine because it's healthy at any weight. I don't want to hear any of that nonsense. Okay, and so I don't believe in health at any weight. It's very clear that obesity is a problem. And I hope that, maybe winning this thing for her will help her get in shape and lose a lot of that weight so that she could be healthy and use whatever great personality got her this win in this contest to, further her lifespan. Because the way she's going, it's not. It's going to shave off a ton of life at the end of her life. Okay, anyway. And finally, this opening segment, my last rant is going to be on the weather. I don't know how many of you people live down here in Florida, but it's another disaster down here. We're drowning in the weather, and our overlords, our Lord and Savior Ronnie, is refusing to let us say the word climate change. Wait, is that somebody at the door that's going to arrest me for saying that? I don't know. But we're not allowed to say that term here because it's a bad word. And they're not passing any kind of infrastructure bills. But if you go to Twitter and look up the account Only in Dade, you're going to see a few posts on how Miami is underwater. There's people in canoes on Collins Avenue. This place is drowning, and that's only the stuff that's coming from the sky. And it was only like 2 or 3 days of rain. Like, the hurricanes haven't gotten here yet. And I'm not talking about the football team that's going to ruin my fall. I'm talking about, like, the ones that are coming from the ocean. The ocean hasn't gotten here yet. That's coming too. And yeah, I'm going to curse in a second, so cover the kids' ears. F you people who don't, like, understand science enough to realize what's coming, okay? Because it's on its way, all right? We got tornadoes in the Midwest. It's like 1,000 degrees in the desert states in the West. They don't have enough water in California. And over here, the ocean is coming. This whole state's going to be underwater at some point. It's just not happening tomorrow, so it's not going to happen because the 80-year-olds aren't going to be around to see it. They don't care, right? And I'm not going to be around probably to see it because I'm going to be here for another, because I'm obese. I'm going to have another 6 to 7 years shaved off the end of my life. I probably won't be around another 40 years. I won't be around to see Florida end up underwater, but it will be at some point. How it rained for 2 days and the city of Miami was practically flooded. Fort Lauderdale more or less got away with it, although streets were flooded in Fort Lauderdale too. And it's going to continue to rain. I'm looking out the window. It's overcast today. It's going to be raining for the next week. So anyway, to end the segment on a positive note, I've got the top 5 athletes that connote South Florida weather for the next week, for the last week and the next week. Top 5 athletes that connote current South Florida weather for the last week and the next week. Number 5, Sonny Gray. Number 4, Gale Sayers. Number 3, Tim Raines. Number 2, Storm Davis. And of course, number 1, Kurt Flood.